Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very excited and grateful to have Mike Mata of Worldwide Golf Shops, LLC, on the special webcast this afternoon. Those of you that are familiar with the Catalyst webinar series, it's every other Thursday morning at 8 a.m. Every other month, 12 months a year, but this is a special webcast of the Catalyst webinar featuring Mike Mata of Worldwide Golf Shops LLC. He is the proprietor of Worldwide Golf Shops LLC, specializing in cybersecurity and loss prevention. We've asked Mike to come on the Catalyst on short notice in light of a very unnerving spike in theft, vandalism, and police reporting of the like at golf courses and country clubs around the Southland. Mike Mata specializes in that. He has a background in law enforcement prior to starting Worldwide Golf Shops LLC. Like I said, he specializes in loss prevention. He's an expert on the subject, and the purpose of today's Catalyst is to bring awareness to all of us in the industry, particularly in Southern California, that have been victimized by this recent unfavorable spike in illegal activities such as theft and certainly some loss prevention. So Mike Mata, thank you very much for being with us today. Thanks for carving out some time in your day to help educate the section and elevate our awareness as to how to get better at looking out for this, especially in the light of the popularity that golf has taken on over the last 2 or 3 years. You start increasing the size and scope of a recreation, you're going to bring that element involved inadvertently just with the increased usage and more people doing it. So Mike, thank you very much for being here today. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John. Just a small correction. I'm not the proprietor of Worldwide Golf Shops LLC. I work for Worldwide Golf Shops LLC. I wish. For those of you who aren't familiar with Worldwide Golf Shops LLC, we operate 86 retail stores nationwide. Some of the regional brands include Roger Dunn Golf Shops on the West Coast, the Golf Mart, Golfdom, Golfers Warehouse, You Into Golf, Vans Golf Shops, Las Vegas Golf Superstore, Bobix in Indiana, and Edward Watts Golf Shop in the Southeast. So yes, we are a retail establishment with 86 locations, and I, as John stated, am in charge of cybersecurity and loss prevention. A brief overview of what we're going to cover today is, number one, we're going to cover exactly what loss prevention is, okay, how we fit in golf retail. We are also going to cover some of the crime surges that we've experienced over the last 2 years since the pandemic, and we are going to cover some solutions that might require some capital and solutions that are free. Loss prevention in retail is really the department that's in charge of securing the company assets, including its most important asset, the employees that work there. We're there to investigate losses, both internal and external. Someone like myself, I've been doing this for 24 years now, so I've pretty much seen any and everything that can happen, both with employees who steal and with crooks off the street that decide to steal. We also act as the primary liaison between whatever retail we work with and the law enforcement agencies that are there to help us fight crime. Within golf retail specifically, my team is part of a golf retail loss prevention coalition, and it consists of the 3 biggest golf retailers, including DSG, which is Dick's Sporting Goods / Golf Galaxy, same company, PGA Tour Superstores, and us, Worldwide Golf Shops. This year, we've branched out to include brand protection, Brand protection are our closest allies. So loss prevention's closest allies and closest thing to a counterpart with the major manufacturers, such as Titleist, TaylorMade, Ping, Callaway, PXG. They all have brand protection specialists, and their job is really to look for the counterfeit items. As you may all know, counterfeiting in the last at least 10 years has really started to dilute some of these brands. In addition to counterfeiting, they also look to protect your accounts, the green grass accounts, by making sure that only authorized resellers are able to obtain their product and sell them at authorized prices. So we've created a cross coalition. In fact, our first meeting, in-person meeting, is going to be at the PGA show in January. And really, within golf retail, loss prevention, one of our major activities is really sharing intelligence between the brands. So in 2021 to 2022, we've definitely seen a crime surge. And certainly John mentioned it earlier. And this crime surge includes the following: organized retail crime. What is organized retail crime? Organized retail crime is essentially when an individual or a team of individuals steals merchandise to feed an enterprise for reselling. Okay. Fraud, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Anything that includes anything like counterfeiting, fake credit cards. Obviously, there's physical attacks that we have definitely seen more of that in the last 2 years. Vandalism, I've heard from John that there have been some courses that were vandalized within the last year. We've certainly seen our fair share of vandalism. In fact, a few weeks ago, our store in New Mexico, the windows were broken. Nothing was taken. It seems like someone just decided to break some windows. And then there's robbery and burglary. The difference between robbery and robbery happens in the presence of the owner or a representative of the owner. So basically daytime when there's employees, and the perpetrator employs force or a weapon to get away with their activity. Burglary occurs at night when someone breaks into a store and they take merchandise. So golf retail theft. Right now, I'm going to speak specifically about organized retail crime. This is shoplifting essentially to feed an enterprise. And before I go into this, I just want to really delve into these enterprises a little bit. These are huge money-making enterprises. Over the course of, my 24 years in this business, I've certainly been a part of several investigations and arrests. And the individuals who move this merchandise, the fences, they are typically involved in a lot of different criminal activity. A lot of these organizations are linked to the drug cartels. They're linked to the various mafias. They're linked to a lot of different street crimes, drugs, you name it. They're all a part of it. And it makes sense. I mean, if you're a crook and you're essentially running an enterprise, albeit a criminal enterprise, just like with any major corporation, it would be smart to divest and diversify. They do the same thing. If there's a crackdown on the US-Mexico border and some of these cartels are having a tough time moving drugs into the country, well, they got to figure out a way to make money somehow. So they move into fraud, counterfeiting, and the big one right now is organized retail crime. Okay, so we have definitely seen an uptick in the number of incidents of daytime thefts, as well as the sheer volume of these incidents. In the past, prior to 2020, we might be chasing one individual per, let's just say, 2 major metropolitan areas. So one individual hitting 2 major metropolitan areas and this individual might be taking $2,000 or $3,000 a pop. So let's say 4 to 6 drivers a pop. Now we could be chasing 3 to 5 individuals operating out of a major metropolitan area, a single major metropolitan area. And each time they come in groups, and now they're taking up to 30 to 50 drivers a pop. So $15,000, sometimes $20,000. Some of the major areas we're experiencing theft in right now is, you guys are right in the middle of it, the Los Angeles to US Mexico border. That is the hotspot right now for golf retail theft. Within the last year, we have seen 3 major theft rings arrested, including 30 individuals. Okay, so these are people who've been put away, but there are still more out there. There's at least 8 more out there. And these were all, interestingly enough, connected to Las Vegas crimes. So moving on to Las Vegas, that's number 2. And this is in the nation. Okay, this is not just within this region. This is within the nation. These are the golf retail hotspots. Las Vegas, Nevada, within the last 4 months, we apprehended, or we stopped 2 theft rings, 15 individuals total. These individuals were actually linked to the LA to US Mexico border thieves. And we know that because, and this is a great example of how intelligence sharing within the golf, we'll just call it the golf crime fighting apparatus, works. I was having lunch with the CHP's Organized Retail Crime Task Force. They actually have a group of detectives who do nothing but work retail crime. We were having lunch, and one of the officers says to me, "Hey, what's with these gold-plated golf clubs?" And I said, "What do you mean gold-plated?" I said, "You mean Hanma?" And he says, "Yeah, Hanma." I go, "What's going on with Hanma?" He says, "Well, we intercepted this bobtail truck who decided to, where the driver decided to stop at a way station, the Rainbow Way Station on the 15. That's in the San Diego area." And he said, when we popped open the back of that truck, we found about $500,000 worth of Hanma product. So I asked the question, well, where was the stuff headed? And it was all stolen product. Hanma had experienced a break-in in their facility down in San Diego. And I said, where was this stuff headed? And he says, Las Vegas. So from that little bit of information, because I specialize in golf theft, that told me a lot. Okay, it told me, there was a major player in Vegas, and it told me just from that little bit of information that a lot of the West Coast activity that we'd seen over the last year and a half were probably centered around Vegas, because we were seeing a ton of theft in Vegas, and it was concentric to Vegas.
Now, Mike, why Vegas?
Why Vegas? The reason why is because the density of the market, right? I mean, the individual can get a lot of product in Vegas, but the most important thing is the transportation infrastructure, right? I mean, he can ship product out of Vegas. So much stuff comes out of Vegas. I mean, he can ship via FedEx, via UPS. In terms of accessibility, his crooks from Northern California, Southern California, and a little bit further to the east, or even in Utah, Salt Lake City, they could feed his enterprise from those 3 different major metropolitan areas. And that's where he lived. Okay, this was a major player. And, knowing golf product, the fact that someone had ordered $500,000 worth of Hanma product told me that the buyer, the person who was purchasing the stolen merchandise, was either didn't know a lot about golf, okay, didn't know a lot about golf merchandise, or they knew a lot about golf. The reason why I say that is because unless you know what you're doing, there's no way you're going to order $500,000 worth of Hanma. How are you going to move that stuff, right? I mean, that's a tough product to move. It's not like it was $500,000 worth of tailor-made product or Titleist product. Hanma is tough to move. So that told me a lot. And from there, we interviewed the truck driver. We were able to get him to tell us exactly who he was supposed to meet. The officers were able to get into his phone and find the text between the perp and his phone. And at the end of the day, it led to this big case in Vegas where we stopped one ring, arrested 12 individuals. And it really stopped the majority of the activity on the entire West Coast as soon as that happened. There's still one and then after that, there was still one active theft ring in Las Vegas. We were able to get them actually last week, and that consisted of 3 individuals. So they're off the streets now. Bay Area, that's another very active area. Unfortunately, we were only able to grab one person in that area. This individual was arrested yesterday, actually, by the CHP's Organized Retail Crime Task Force. And this person is an ex-con, he's a felon. He was also wanted on federal illegal weapons charges. He was linked to drugs. No surprises there. Houston, Texas, that's another hot spot for us. And when I say us, I don't just mean my company, okay? Every single one of these individuals that were arrested, or all these cases that I'm talking about on this slide, this includes all of the major golf retailers: Dick's Sporting Goods, Golf Galaxy, PGA Tour Superstores, and ourselves, Worldwide Golf Shops. And it also includes some green grass stores. In Vegas, these two theft rings, in fact, the second one that was arrested, or that was stopped a few weeks ago, they actually specialized in breaking into green grass stores. That's what they did. So in Houston, Texas, one individual has been arrested. There's still a few out there that are active. And the way this works is you stop one, three are gonna come and replace that one. That's just the way it is, right? That's how crime works. You never truly stop it. And that's why we have to really focus on networking and communication. So after hours break-ins, the hotspot for after hours break-ins, believe it or not, was Kansas, Texas, Louisiana, and Florida. And this was perpetrated by 2 individuals working together. They traveled, okay? There were 18 break-ins in these states between 2021 and 2022. Las Vegas saw a total of 15 break-ins. Okay, the majority of those were golf courses. Okay, Southern California, we had 6 break-ins. I don't have numbers in terms of the golf courses. I knew there were some golf courses that have been broken into, but the majority of these are retail stores. So solutions. Some solutions, basic ones that will require capital investments, are cameras, okay? Not just cameras, but current camera technology, and I'll tell you why. The reason why having modern camera systems is important is because law enforcement relies on the images and the videos that you can provide to identify the suspect, okay? So they have to be clear images, and B, clearly show that a crime was committed. So there are 2 things that are important here. Number one, they really have to be clear images, okay? And number 2, they have to be strategically placed. So you have to put a lot of effort, okay, or the right effort, I should say, into making sure these cameras are placed in the correct areas. Okay, some of the best practices in terms of where to place these cameras: the parking lot. You need a camera in the parking lot because the suspect's vehicle, specifically their license plate, is the best identifying piece of information that the police are going to have. Okay, a thief comes into the store, they're obviously anonymous, they get into a car, they speed away. If you get that license plate number, okay, and you get a make and model of the vehicle, 9 times out of 10, that'll give the police something to start tracking movement or to find out who owns the car. Even if the individual who's driving the car doesn't necessarily own it, if it's provided it's not a stolen vehicle, they probably borrowed it from someone. And from there, the police can start figuring out who the thief is. Security officers, that's another possible solution. But the thing with security officers is they have to be trained in your specific environment. Okay, they need to know exactly where hotspots are, what are the types of crimes that happen. And at the end of the day, unless you want to spend $100 an hour on security, you're probably going to end up with, paying $35 an hour to a company who's going to pay a guard $18 an hour. And I'm just going to say it, you're not going to get the best. So really, my suggestion is cameras would be a worthwhile investment, okay? And don't just look for the cheapest solution, look for the best solution. I certainly have some good contacts within the security camera industry. If you need some ideas, certainly reach out to me and I'll help you out. But really, we should focus on some of the no cost to low cost measures, okay? Networking, very important. What we're doing today is a function of that networking, right? Communication between staff members, okay? Most important, right? While the crime is happening, the people who are going to be able to deter it are the marshals, the starters, even the greenskeepers, right? I think all of those folks should be trained in at least knowing how to communicate suspicious behavior. Communication between golf courses. If something happens at Kulo's course, John, you can call some of the ones around you, right? Let them know, hey, we just got hit at this course. And I think golf courses do a pretty good job of that. The one thing I would say though is, I don't know, maybe John and I off the call, we can figure out a way to set up a better channel of communication. But whenever you experience organized retail crime, or you experience a break-in where merchandise was targeted, we loss prevention teams at the retailers, we'd love to know about it, because there's a very good chance that we might be chasing the same suspect. And what we're able to do is, we're able to guide you through how to prevent it from happening next time, okay? And most importantly, we can tell you what to do with the information that you've got, your witness statements. We can even tell you what information the police are going to need. We can tell you, we might even be able to tell you who the individual is. There's a lot of information to be gained by sharing that information.
You're absolutely right, Mike. It's like, especially with the thefts that have been going on at the club level in terms of members' bags and cash and wallets and and watches disappearing from their carts while they're on the golf course at multiple private clubs in the area over a span of days. By sharing that information, we can compare tee sheets and see if there's any common names on the tee sheet in those tournaments or at those clubs over those days, and look for the commonalities there. Most certainly.
That's how crimes get solved. I love that. I mean, the fact that you have some frame of reference, some form of information that both separate facilities can refer to make a match. That's how crime is solved, right?
Now, going back, a quick question about the cameras. Are they more, especially in this environment where, people are caught for breaking into a car and they're not necessarily arrested anymore, they're just ticketed, and the consequences for misdemeanor crimes are less and less in this environment. Are the cameras less effective at capturing the actual crime when you see who did it, you see what they did, you see the car that they're in, but how do you hold them accountable when the consequences are not that rigorous in comparison to how they once were?
So this is how it works. If an individual is arrested for breaking into a car at one golf course, right, he might be, like you said, ticketed, or it could be a misdemeanor depending on what he steals, right? But if he shows a pattern, okay, and it's a provable pattern via camera systems, that he's done 15 golf courses and that he travels, okay, then at that point, what happens is the district attorney is going to want to up the charges and might even include racketeering. That's one of the things that we're able to do when we investigate organized retail crime. In fact, I just got word today that the CHP and the DA, the state's attorney, is going to go ahead and charge the individual that was arrested yesterday in Northern California with 490.5C, which is essentially a RICO statute. So that's a big deal, right? Is when someone is arrested for a series of crimes, and it shows that them as a nuisance doesn't just bother one individual or one area, but now they're affecting multiple communities. That changes things.
Certainly. Well, and, a big part of this, like we talked about offline before today's webinar, was that, golf operations, Worldwide Golf Shops LLC and the big box retailers, there's certainly more awareness of it there just because there's more traffic and there's more of a history. But the green grass facilities, us as employees and operators at these green grass facilities, for the most part, we're pretty naive and pretty oblivious day in, day out to how easy it is to be victimized by theft. And really that's where, the crooks and the criminal element sees that opportunity to take advantage of a demographic that's pretty naive and vulnerable and not even thinking about our members getting robbed while they're on the golf course in their carts is like the furthest thing from our mind. But it's, it's something that we got to be aware of, not just as operators, but just as people that are running businesses that are trying to provide a service and a good here, and nothing compromises that like a violation of safety like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And as a golfer, I am glad that golf professionals have focused their careers on providing an enjoyable experience for golfers like myself, right? So what does that mean? Why do I even mention that? Well, it's understandable then why there might be an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about security, because you weren't focused on that, right? Someone who's been in the business as long as, let's say, you have, or some of my other friends who work at other golf courses have, they've been focused on providing a good environment, right? It's hospitality, right? Not necessarily security. But times have changed, and I'm glad that this group here is certainly receptive to making some of these changes, because it's time. Because it's not, and I don't want to sound doom and gloom. I don't want to scare anyone, but it's not going to get any better. Okay, I've seen it escalating, or where this might be a new phenomenon to a lot of individuals. I've kept my eyes on this now for the last 20 some years, and it's just ramped up. The one thing that changed everything with golf specifically, and you mentioned it earlier, is really the pandemic, right? That drove the number of rounds played, per day. And we certainly saw it on the retail side. We're selling more equipment than we've ever sold before, and that goes for all the retailers.
Well, certainly. Just looking at guys on this call, Anthony Lanza at Monarch Beach and John McCook at Newport Beach, myself here at South Hills, Hacienda, Oakmont. These are all places that have been victimized within the last couple of years. And, it's the operators and the employees that are working at these places. It's not like they come to work expecting that every day, and that awareness. It's like the biggest thing that we could take away as a Southern California PGA membership on this call is we need to be looking for things that we normally wouldn't look for, and we need to be aware of our vulnerabilities, because it's like, just like we talked about with safety at properties. It's not as if we're trying to. The purpose of going through safety training is not just to get the safety training. Yes, that is a big part of it, but it's also to think safer and work safer, and be on the look for situations that normally we're not looking for.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Think safer. right? That's a great point. It has to become part of your daily thought process, not like an external item that you know, oh, I need to think about safety or security right now. No, it's everything you do needs to include safety and security. So yeah, I mean that, and that's really what an awareness program is all about. So the last two things I want to address on this side under solutions are awareness and physical presence. So we will go into detail here. If I had to get interviewed at the end of my career, let's say, I don't know, 15 years from now, I get interviewed and someone asks me, what is the one area of focus within your career that really netted you success? I mean, drove down that shrink number and decreased the amount of crime in the locations you were in charge of. I'd say a solid awareness program. Okay. You know, John, earlier you mentioned that you come to work at a golf course. You're not coming to work or even really getting into your industry expecting as a new person in your industry. Let's say, you know, you just started working, you got your first job at a golf course or at a country club. You know, you're like, to your point, you're not expecting to deal with these things. That's the furthest thing from your mind. You wanted to pervade golf, right? Well, the same thing goes for the retail environment, right? You get your, you know, 21-year-old employee, first day on the job, they signed up to sell merchandise. They signed up to sell, in our case, to sell golf equipment. They didn't sign up to deter theft. They didn't sign up to have to handle, you know, violent customers, right? So to get them to in the right frame of mind to be able to do these things, an awareness program is the most important thing. Okay. An awareness program can consist of so many things. I mean, at our company and most retailers, we actually leverage our marketing departments to create posters. Okay, we put posters in the break room, posters that essentially teach, right? They alert. We will put information on what to look for from a suspicious customer, what a suspicious customer looks like, how to deter counterfeit bills, how to deter fraudulent credit card sales, little things like that. And we send posters throughout the year to the stores. And every retailer does that. That is actually a best practice within the entirety of retail loss prevention. But specifically, things that you can start doing now, brief your employees on the known risks. Okay, when I say known risks, I don't mean like the ever-present risks of working at a golf course, but you know, if you heard from a neighboring golf course that a couple of patrons were robbed or a couple of patrons had their bags removed from their carts, make sure every single employee knows this. And I mean every employee, every pro shop cashier, every starter, every marshal, even the greenskeepers. Okay. I mean, I was telling John this yesterday. I play golf pretty regularly with police officers from a lot of different agencies. And one of the topics that we'll have while we're waiting to tee off or whatever is, you know, we talk about the vulnerabilities of the course, right? It's natural because we all fight crime, so we're constantly thinking that way. And I had a friend of mine from LAPD, and he made a comment. It was early morning, so one of the greenskeepers was actually off by the woods with his equipment, and he says, "How much do you think that guy has seen?" And the keeper had to be probably about 60 years old, so he'd been around a while, kept to himself. But I mean, we started thinking like, these guys have to see a lot. They probably see a lot, but and I don't know, because I don't work at a golf course and I'm certainly not judging, but is there a channel for escalation for someone like that? They see something, or are they encouraged to say something if they see 4 guys on a tee box and an extra 2 guys, let's say 4 guys or 4 players on an elevated tee box and 2 people by golf carts? That's 6 people technically at a tee box. Why are there 2 extra individuals there? I mean, in my mind, that would tell me, okay, someone's either goofing around or someone's about to steal someone's equipment. But are these greenskeepers, are they trained to see that, to look for that, and to communicate that upward? I don't know, but that's something you can certainly explore. Develop a plan to address security situations, right? Who's the point of contact at your course? Okay, during a specific time of day. It should be one person. One person who's also knows what to do, one person who's going to call the police, one person who's going to direct movement. Signage to alert patrons. I've heard a little bit about what's going on with some of these stolen golf bags and pilfered golf bags, because when as we take trade-ins, and one of the calls that some of the golf courses will make is they'll call our stores and they'll let us know that, hey, if you see these clubs come through, just an FYI, one of our patrons was hit recently. But signage at the starter, right, to alert patrons. Keep your valuables in your car, or keep them in your pocket. But I think customers and patrons should they deserve to be made aware that there is a risk. And a starter script, at the first tee. Just saying something like, hey guys, do you have any valuables in your bags? You might want to leave them. We've had some incidents recently. Just be aware, you're keeping your stuff in your bag at your own risk. Okay. Communications. This goes with the develop a plan to address security situations. Radios are fairly inexpensive. You can get them online. But I think for a golf course, you probably want some more robust communication system. Radios typically cost about $200 a piece. If you have 10 radios, that's $2,000, but you have that instant communication. That's the key. And communicate all suspicious behaviors. Employees really need to be encouraged to report any suspicious behavior. If you get a gut reaction out of something, okay, you should probably call it in. So other little things that you can do, physical presence, okay? Sometimes you can make a huge change in physical presence, not necessarily by adding headcount. We'd all love to add headcount, but just changing where they tend to, where the employees tend to go, okay? Or even changing how they get there. If an employee or employees tend to take a certain route to get to a certain work area, maybe just by changing their route once in a while, that can have a huge effect. Because believe it or not, the crooks, John, you made mention of this the other day. There was a situation where it seemed like the crooks hid in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right? For like 40 minutes, right? They showed a lot of patience and planning. A lot of these crooks do that, right? I mean, they're not there just to goof around. I mean, they're there to make some money. It's business for them. So, just identifying where some of those hotspots are and making sure you've got employees that are visiting those areas more frequently. So at the pro shop, that's the door, right? I mean, all retail theft starts at the door, okay? And what I mean by that is, if a shoplifter walks into a store, if they are greeted within 8 seconds after crossing that threshold, the chances of them taking merchandise are significantly decreased. Now, not all of them, because there are some really bold shoplifters out there, and he'll take whatever, he'll take what you own no matter what. But it'll at least deter some of them. The driving range. Okay, if you've got the employees who are working the driving range, have them walk the line once in a while. Okay, just walk the line once in a while. Just looking for suspicious behavior. Okay, on the course, bottlenecks. I think that restroom you were talking about, John, I would classify that as a bottleneck because it takes a little bit more time to get through that area as a patron than most places. It was a strategic area for those crooks.
Certainly.
And
I mean, no different than the water show at the Mirage in Vegas, you know, where you get a big group of people that gather together. It's an easier venue for people to steal. I mean, this was at our on-course snack bar after the 9th hole before the 10th hole. And there's usually a backup there because it's a par 3 and people get snacks and drinks and stuff, and there's restrooms there. And that's where it took place. And then, you know, also at the other 2 clubs that were mentioned earlier in this webinar, same thing. It was done near a restroom on a men's day or a men's tournament where the ladies' restroom was not being used as much, and it was a place to hide in between groups for the thieves to stay while they let the recently robbed group get back in their carts, drive away, wait in the ladies' restroom. Next group comes up, goes inside, goes to the tee, carts are left unattended, come out of the ladies' restroom, go through the bags, take the money, take the watches and the plastic, then back into the restroom. And then 10 minutes later, I mean, having the patience and the wherewithal to wait 45 minutes and hit 4 groups that have come through that area. I mean, that's not an amateur thief. That's a seasoned vet. Big difference from running in off the golf course, off the street, grabbing a driver out of someone's bag, running back down and getting in the running car and driving away. This was a whole new level of thievery that, again, you know, we were very naive to call it what it is.
Sure. You know, and again, it goes back to what golf courses are all about, right? It's about being there, doing something you enjoy. It's a family environment. And it's just got to change the way you do things. That's all it comes down to. So trouble spots. I mean, you know, like I see a lot of these, you know, these tee boxes that are elevated, and I imagine some of those areas might also serve as a great strategic area for a thief to do their business. So the next thing in no to low cost solutions, networking. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, communicate all incidents to other courses. Get to know your local officers. One thing that's great about golf is cops love to golf, right? Get to know some of them. Especially your sergeants, okay? Because the sergeants are the biggest levers in law enforcement. They're the ones who really get things done. And if you have a good property crime sergeant in your Rolodex or in your contact list, that from a law enforcement standpoint can be your best friend. Report all retail theft to law enforcement, okay? No matter how small, make the call. They'll tell you whether or not it's worth it to report it or not. Unfortunately, a lot of times, you know, or actually every time someone steals one driver, that is not a felony. So there are a lot of police departments who are not interested in taking that case, but, okay, that individual, based on their description or whatever vehicle they might be driving, might be someone who's part of something larger. And if you let law enforcement know, and that person matches a description of someone who was reported before, or someone who might be linked to a greater criminal enterprise, then that helps, right? it's not just about what happened today. It's about whether or not this is going to happen again, okay, or whether or not this has happened with this individual in the past, and what can we do ultimately to take as many people like this person off the streets. Okay, and communicate with us, your partners in golf retail. I think one of the hardest parts is I've only known one security person in the golf course industry, and that's I think you probably know this person, John. He's actually a friend of mine, Jerry Swick.
I was just thinking, you're going to mention Jerry Swick right now with American Golf. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's got, he did American Golf in its heyday had, 300 properties worldwide. And then during the 10 years that I worked for them, they had about 90 properties. But, Jerry, that was the biggest thing he did, rather than track down isolated incidents and address those incidents, was he promoted awareness to the properties. And that was a huge piece of what he did. So for sure.
Yeah, Jerry's a good guy. I still talk to him once in a while. Great guy. In fact, he and I had partnered up a few years ago to close one of probably the most prolific golf retail thief in history up to that point. This guy was running through LA, Orange County, Phoenix, and he was just killing the golf industry. I mean, all major retailers in golf. He was hitting golf courses, but Jerry and I, he and I had teamed up with Dick's Sporting Goods, and we were able to get that guy. So yeah, I mean, really, and I mentioned Jerry because he doesn't really do as much work as he used to, but he was the only connection I really had to the golf courses, and that's tough. I mean, there's so much that, and obviously this relationship is symbiotic, because the more information we get from the golf courses, that's more intel for our teams to help us pile on cases on these crooks. But it's tough because there's not that one representative, who knows the golf course industry, communicating with folks like that, speaks our language, So, I really think that one of the things we have to do is just get used to sharing that information with your neighbors in retail, and we will do likewise. Oh, and your manufacturing representatives. Okay, I mentioned earlier that the manufacturers, they have a brand protection specialist. Okay, in fact, your Titleist, their director of brand protection, Lisa Rogan, is a good friend of mine. Okay, and she tracks robberies or theft and burglaries, overnight break-ins, especially when Titleist is involved. She'll actually get private investigators involved, because this product, if it's Titleist product, it's going to be sold on the streets. And Acushnet definitely doesn't want that product being sold on the streets, because it dilutes the brand a little bit. So if something happens, by all means, make sure your manufacturing representative knows about it, because they'll bubble that up to their brand protection specialist, and that information will make it to us as well. So John, that's pretty much it. There's my contact information. I'd love to field questions. I think we have 8 minutes to do so, if we want to do that. Whatever questions you've got, I'm here for you.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mike. On behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA section, thank you very much for carving out time and jumping on the Catalyst short notice like this. Definitely the awareness is key. And that's if we could all be a little bit more aware, and the people that we supervise and work with can be a little more aware as a result of today's webcast, then it's well worth it. Thank you very much for coming on. Holly Kennedy, as a golf course owner in Oceanside, and part of the SCPGA section. She thinks it would be great to have a liaison at our section office that we can report incidents to and have them report those to Mike. Well, absolutely, Holly, that it's a tremendous point about the networking that Mike alluded to earlier in his presentation, that if we can open up the lines of communication and have a system for tying our clubs together on a commonality like that would be extremely beneficial.
Absolutely. If you
Any
decide,
other questions from the field? Okay, I think that's it for this afternoon's webinar. Mike, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll keep in touch for sure. Thanks for doing this again. Those of you that aren't aware, Mike's actually presented on the Catalyst webinar a couple years back, and I think with the way golf is going and the popularity of the game, getting Mike to come on once a year and tighten us up on our awareness and help break down a little bit of our naive nature to the unfavorable element in our business would be extremely beneficial. And thanks a lot, Mike, for coming on today. For all the PGA members that are on this afternoon's webcast, you will receive 1 PDR credit for being on the webinar.